Welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Marianne Pinkston. Join Dr. Pinkston today as she teaches you how an integrative approach to health, combining holistic and contemporary medical information, can lead you to the better life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Marianne Pinkston.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Marianne Pinkston, and this is The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston, always searching for new topics and things that will help everybody, men, women, everybody, to develop something better for themselves and for their lives. And today we're going to focus in a little better direction that's aimed probably at women 50 and older, which is where I am, and my story falls right into this, and I love this topic. So we are, with no further ado, going to introduce Stephanie Georges. Now, she is a 40-year, and she doesn't look it, but a 40-year career executive and strategist, Harvard trained. She's been on Wall Street. Wow, I'd love to hear all about that. Co-creator of the Meraki Dignity Project. Very interesting. We will highlight that this morning. And so what is that? To quote you, is an AI platform for women over 50 who are navigating key life transitions with dignity. And that is the best way to put it. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you for coming in and recording with me this morning. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here on a Monday morning.
On a Monday morning, right? Oh, yeah. This is always a tough morning to get out and get rolling. But yeah, happy to be here. So in that, it's a long introduction of a lot of accomplishments squeezed into a little sentence right there. Tell us who you are and where you've been and how you arrived to this place.
Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I don't know if your readers know that.
That's a good question.
I used to have a boss that used to tell me, Stephanie, do you want the Reader's Digest or the Adam and Eve? So here we go. The Reader's Digest version. I was actually first gen, born in Brooklyn before it was a thing to live in Brooklyn, and grew up. My mom was Greek, and she always kind of inspired me with this idea of doing what you love. And that's what Meraki is. Meraki is really about that flow you get when you pour yourself into something that you absolutely love. My guess, Marianne, is that might be what you're doing here. Time flies. Anyway, so that's always been humming in the back of my mind. I kind of, being first gen, graduated, went into let's do a big, hard career. Was one of the first women in investment banking and research on Wall Street in that early crew in the 80s. Learned a lot and kind of navigated my career through that and then corporate. And what kind of got me to this pivot, we're all going through many pivots, but at one point somewhere in my career, I realized that it wasn't really giving me the joy that it always had. And that started getting me thinking about what's that about? And that really had to do with a bunch of things, but its core, kind of well-being and feeling whole and feeling like you are able to kind of have the ability to make choices intentionally. And that doesn't just mean being healthy or being wealthy or being wise. It really is sort of a combination of things that allow you to have agency. Yes. And agency is really, in my view and our view at Meraki, the outcome of dignity. So when you, I get a little emotional about it, when you are honored and your dignity is honored, you are able to make intentional choices, and those choices give you joy and freedom. And that's what we're here to do.
Exclamation mark. I love that. I really do. And so briefly, about 47 started to feel that rumble inside as you're speaking of. And that transition is difficult because people see you in a certain way. And I think most women are taking care of everybody else except for themselves. And so for me, it was a level of, I am not going to sustain this mentally, physically, emotionally. My health is suffering. Everything is suffering. My family's suffering. And I think I'm doing the right thing by, doing all that caregiving and lack of boundaries, lack of peace. How would I get through all of that? Plus going through menopause and the changes that are there in my health, and how to get through all of that and come out on the other side, like you say, with that peace and the inner peace and that dignity, and establish some boundaries. And I think you come out, really, it's a very frightening thing to do, but you come out on the other end, I think, more respected. I'm so happy that I've shown my girls, my children, how to transgress all of that of what, I thought I was and doing, and then finding something I love. So again, I meant to.
Oh, you make a really, really, really great point, because I think this generation is particularly, when you think about, and this affects women and men because we're all in this together.
Yes.
But when you think about the road that women kind of forged right after the women's movement in the 60s, we're sort of the product of that. And it was a lot of trailblazing. Gloria Steinem and her team certainly blazed a lot of trails and opened doors. But then I think, at least for me, particularly on Wall Street and in corporate environments where I was generally the only woman at the table for many, many years, it was the scaffolding was not there, right? The systems didn't really support us. And that's one of the reasons we felt that dignity became kind of a greater and more resonant rally cry, because it feels like equity, no offense to equity, because we are all believers in equity, had kind of become this somebody wins at somebody else's expense.
Right.
And so it felt like, I don't know about you, but I felt guilty, like, people were thinking I was taking somebody else's seat because I was a woman. And you feel this shame and guilt, and like you have to try that much harder. Exactly what you were talking about. I have to juggle 7 things because I'm a woman. And most of that was frankly self-imposed. But I do think that what you said, I really appreciate. Sort of modeling for the next generation is really critical, so that we can continue to open up the opportunity for everyone to benefit.
Absolutely. And I'll pay a little homage to my mother, who recently passed, who in the 80s, divorced mom, single mom, who went off to New York for 3 summers to educate herself, get her psychology degree, came home, and this is during the early 80s, to open her own business, and spent 30 years doing that business and raising a kid and putting a roof over my head and all of those things. And so I wasn't upset that she went off for 3 summers. I admired that, because I knew it was a very hostile, environment at that time, and being seen as, feminist and, very negative connotation, when it really wasn't. It was very beautiful. And now we're all thankful we did that, because we need a 4-income home at this point, right?
No kidding.
Seriously.
No, it's so true. And I think that, again, picking up on what you just said, what's so exciting for me, and one of the reasons why we started to coalesce around this idea of a platform around how do we think about women's holistic health and a place where they can build knowledge, was that actually I think we are at another meaningful inflection point. Women's economic value and influence is growing. I'm sure you've had people on this podcast talk about the $38 trillion wealth transfer that's going to women.
Yes.
That 95% of household spending decisions are made by women.
Right.
Women have a significant amount of power.
Yes.
And so that's number one. So it was we knew, I knew personally, I didn't like the way I felt when I was leaving my career. I didn't know, I wasn't gratified. I wanted to do something different. But what gave me hope was there's an opportunity, if we can sort of galvanize a place where women can build knowledge and sort of invest in their own well-being. And that's what the Meraki platform is trying to do, that we can sort of unlock that, influence, that economic influence, and, make things better societally.
Beautiful. And so I want to know, I definitely want to know how this came about. And I think you've explained some of that. But you mentioned beforehand, as we were talking, about the fear and that fear of making those, transitions. It's a big jump. You affect everybody around you. I know I did it. And, that fear of hurting everybody else, I don't even think we incorporate how much we fear for ourselves, honestly, but it's all incorporated inside this fear that I am not happy. I need to do something different. I can be better for my family. I can be better for my world, but where do you even begin, to sit down at the kitchen table with the family and go, okay, I'm leaving my career and I'm going to do something else. I'm going to become entirely somebody else at this point, but the real me, right? And so can we talk about that?
Yes. So enter the Meraki Dignity Project.
Thank you. Yes.
And enter Meraki. So thanks for that. That's exactly where I was. And I felt like I was sort of like, I'm a fairly resourced woman. I don't even mean financially. I mean more like I had agency, I had connections, I had built a network, I had the luxury of being really having the gift of having education. And I didn't know, I was paralyzed. Yeah. How do I make this step? And you nailed it. It's not just paralyzed because I don't know what my options are. It's paralyzed because it just felt like I was going to lose something or, give something up. And, it was like you're juggling, 7 balls. And if one falls, they're all going to drop and it'll. Absolutely. Yes. So that's really where we started. And we interviewed 1,000 women. We had done a lot of quantitative and qualitative research, and we sort of targeted women 40 and over, 45 and older, actually, and asked them these questions about how they're navigating, are they navigating transitions? What are the reasons for them? And what are the obstacles? And at the end of the day, we really realized that there was an opportunity to create a place, whether it was a technological space or a physical space. We didn't know when we started, but a place where women could have access to resources and community. So tools, resources, knowledge that allowed them to see clearly, to have the clarity to take that first next step, not to tell them what to do, not to decide for you, not to give you the diagnosis or the solution, but give you the resources and clarity. So make it accessible and personalized and holistic. So it's accessible, like here's who I am, here's where I'm at, served up resources, tools, and community for you, an N of one, like you personally.
Nice.
And holistically, it's not just, I'm thinking about my career. I'm thinking about my career. I don't know who's going to take care of my kids. I don't know what about my parents. I'm not sure I have the I'm not even sure what the financial implications of that are. And I'm my health because I'm stressed out. So it's sort of a whole well-being view as opposed to we're going to treat this as a career transition.
Right. Thank you. Very nice. Very nice. And so how did you get started? Big question. Sorry. But yeah, where does this go now? When you get online and see it, and where does it lead?
So
website.
No, I love it. I love the question. I mean, so 2 questions. So just how do we get started? I think like any other anything that really, it requires a lot of conviction and momentum. And so I think it has to be personal. So for me, I felt like if I was feeling this, I have to believe others are feeling this. And I didn't know the answer, but that's where the research came in. So we started to do the research, and we really felt what was happening at the same time was technology, particularly AI, was advancing dramatically.
Yes. Yeah.
Like from a year and a half ago to today, it was a huge, everyone knows it's been a huge transformation. And we felt so lucky that we started to realize, wow, you know what? Instead of thinking about AI as something to be feared, and and there are aspects of it to be feared, it actually levels the playing field. It gives much more access to knowledge. So we started to really pivot to think about our solution as an online platform. So to answer your question, we're now about to enter beta. So we're like close to piloting. So women can come to our platform. We could talk about that more specifically, but you basically onboard and you have a series of questions. It takes less than 3 minutes. And we have a navigator or an ally, whatever you want to call her. We call her your ally, Sophie. And Sophie is really someone that gathers some of your, insights and information, and then creates a specific map for you, a map that says, here's where you are. Here's, you can sort of determine where you want to go. We don't determine it, but you can adjust it. The map really looks at your health, your wellness goals, your financial goals, your career goals or your work goals, and your relational goals. Like, what are you thinking about in relationships? It tries to really hone in with you around what do you want to tackle first? And then it begins to give you a personalized landing page with resources that can start to help you navigate. And once you go through that, and as you're going through that, what starts to happen is you have the opportunity to engage in community with other women who are feeling or experiencing the same thing. So if you're really looking at, I want to kind of pursue art, because that's what I've always wanted to do, or I want to go from being a journalist to a podcaster. Yeah. There are groups and communities forming as specific as that, or as general as my mom has Alzheimer's. Oh my God, what am I going to do? So we really believe it's the combination of giving people the ability to kind of assess where they are, get clarity, build confidence through learning and knowledge, women-based knowledge. Yes. Everything is evidence-based. Everything is women informed. So it's not general. We love the large language models, but think of this as a small language model for women. Yeah. And then it allows you to connect, because we think the power is really in women connecting with women. So
absolutely. Because it can be a very isolating feeling to do this. And I love what you said. If I'm feeling this, then I know others are. And that's absolutely correct. And it's not something we just sit around the table, with 30 minutes to have lunch together and coffee and start, digging deep and start talking about. And what I love about this is how personalized it is. Sophie's cool. I sent my daughter through it. So Sophie's really cool. And it is, I advise women, if you are in this position, just sit down and take a look. It's not something that, if you're not ready, to act upon or you're feeling that fear, just look at it. And when it opens up, some of those doors, it really eliminates some of that fear. It's interesting, and that community, it's really, really awesome.
Well, one of the I'm really glad you brought that up, because one of the things, I'll have to tell you the story. We started on this what you guys played with is the alpha. The beta is coming in a couple of weeks, which is so much more advanced. But I definitely would love to get feedback and have people play with it and engage with it. What we found, so we launched it a few months ago, and we didn't know who was on it. It's totally anonymous, so no one knows. Yeah, that's the thing to point out. But which is important, because privacy is critical. We can get to that. Yes. But what we found was women were getting on and then getting off. They were like on for 30 seconds. And we were like, oh no, we failed. It's like a typical woman. Oh my God, I've failed.
Yeah, right.
And we ended up, then people would re-sign on. And we didn't know it was them re-signing on, but then all of a sudden we would see people staying on for a long time. And what we discovered was that we're so used to technology making us think we have to move fast.
Right.
And what was kind of interesting in the feedback we got was, thank you for giving me the opportunity to slow down and invest in myself.
Right.
I couldn't do this at the checkout line at the supermarket when I was checking out. And I thought I could because I'm trained to think every app makes me move fast. But you gave me an opportunity to be with myself and think something that I feel was worth investing in. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Like self-research, really. It's self-research. So yeah, it's not just on the checklist and you're like, okay, one and done. And then you get an email later or something. It really is sit down and take a look, because there's a lot of self-research, like a mirror that comes back at you thinking, wow. And I think that is, and I think you're right. The some of the fear is to some of the privacy issues, but also the big change. Am I making a big change right this minute? No, it's just an opportunity to research it and look at it. And it just starts to open that door a little bit of your thought. And when women, I think many people, not just women, but and I did the same thing when I wanted to start, my weight loss business and whatnot, it was like everything had to be perfect all at once. And then I open, right? And then we go. And it's like, nope, that is not how it happens. You slow down and you just start piecing it together, and you start with one thing and then you add on and you change it up and you filter it and you look at it a little different, and each day is different, and you just build and slow and slow. And that's kind of what this does with yourself, which I love. I think it was brilliant.
There's when you have clarity and knowledge, right? You don't have to act upon it, but it starts to, like you said, it kind of cogitates in your brain and it sort of gets things moving. And I talk about it. For me, the way I describe it, the metaphor I've used is I had been working in these pretty big roles in corporate and Wall Street. I was at the top of the food chain, whatever. I was at the top of the food chain. So I felt like, I had the biggest, most broad view of everything. Cause I was like, looking at the widest aperture. I was looking at things broadly. And then I started to sort of, like you said, take a step back and think about what are the possibilities for me, because I felt stuck and unhappy, frankly. And to your point, just little by little, I realized that my whole last 20 years, I'd been looking through a straw, like literally looking through a straw. And that all of a sudden it's like, wow, I can start my own business. Wow. I mean, I'm not going to today, but it's a possibility. And that is so confidence building, which I think is a big part of women's challenge, right? We're in environments that kind of marginalize our ability to have confidence.
Yes.
And then I think you're doing so much that you feel like you're not able to succeed at everything, and that becomes failure, and that becomes shame. And so to your point, like creating a place where you can take that first next step and just open, take the straw away.
Exactly, because you do. You start looking backwards and you think, wow, I've done a lot. But, for me to change and do things differently, how is everybody going to perceive me now? And I think that failure and that shame and that guilt is just super strong. It is a pair of handcuffs. But when you start getting into kind of your late 40s and early 50s, you really start to see, I just can't survive like this anymore. There's more out there that I can affect and do. But what are people going to think? I was so scared that my children were going to think I just left them and no, they admired it. They wanted to see that. It's like, Mom, you finally deserve this. And, nobody had said that before at all. I think everybody just loved the fact that I was doing everything.
They were all dependent on you. It's like
exactly.
Self-preservation.
Exactly. But this is a time where, this age where your children are a little older, they're starting to develop their own lives and a lot changes at this age. And I'll step back to something you said earlier where, very educated. You have been at that top of the food chain. You do have all these wonderful resources. Everything seems to be set and wonderful for you. And you were still scared. It's natural. That's
I say that with all humility, right? I mean, so it really was, because you sort of feel like, wow, if I feel this way, I can't even imagine. It's so paralyzing. And so it's not really about the resource. It really is about the confidence and the ability to sort of have the access.
Yeah.
I think that was a huge eye opener.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. And I think also that the community, building that community where you begin to see that other women are experiencing what you are experiencing is so helpful. I think my mom, when she was going through all of that, and you on Wall Street, I can't imagine the backbone that you have had to have getting through all of that. I'm sure.
Or the naivete. I don't know which one it was.
Right? Wow, what a ride.
Community is key. And one of my favorite pieces of work was done by this woman, Rosabeth Moss-Cantor, who has written a bunch. She was the first tenured professor at Harvard Business School. And what was interesting is she talked about the tipping point. So it's 30%. So really, in order to feel that you're not broken as a woman, 30% is a tipping point. So if 30% of the community, 30% of the organization, 30% of the women around the board table, 30% of a club, whatever environment you are in, 30%, it doesn't have to be 50%, but 30% is where you can look across the table and find someone who may be sympathetic to you as a woman. And that obviously is with any marginalized group. But I think, for me, thinking about it as a woman, having been in places where you were 1 or 10% or 5% or even less of the population, it's really hard to actually feel that you can connect with anyone. So that was why community felt so important to us. And I think especially women in midlife, there is this invisibility that happens because of so many things. Your children no longer need you, quote unquote. Your identity, to your point, has shifted from whether you've had a family or not, from being someone that is sort of critical in certain points. And so just having community, just being a platform that was tech was not enough for us. We felt it had to be a place where women could be seen and connect with each other.
Absolutely. It's so wonderful. And so we will have to take a short break, but don't go away yet, because I want you, please, to tell us where can we break in and start that journey and find out more about you and more about the project. Websites or emails or any way to reach you or
sorry, I just realized I was our website is MerakiDignity.com, and if you go to MerakiDignity.com, you will find our platform, so you can engage there. We've got a Substack, I think, like a lot of people do, which we are really excited about. It's been growing rapidly, so you can find us on Meraki Dignity on Substack, which is a fun place to engage with us. There's a lot of really interesting, some of the resources that we're going to be sharing, we go in depth. So financial, health, wellness, women, other community. And then obviously any other social channel, our Instagram and LinkedIn are places where we're a lot. But the most important place, I think, where we would love this community to engage with our community is on our Meraki Dignity website, and just click onto our platform and you can give it a spin.
Absolutely. So, and I want to spell it for people because it's not an easy find, honestly. And so please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm notorious, but MERAKI Dignity Project, right? .com.
Right. So it's Meraki, MERAKI Dignity, DIGNIY.com.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And no project. Thank you. I'll put that in. But I'm going to make it easy for everybody. So they know my website, drpbetterlife.com, and all this information will be there. I did not realize the Substack. I missed that. And I'm going to have that on there. And we're going to talk a little bit more because I have a couple of questions about how health kind of enters into this too, but need to take a short break. Magna Pharmaceuticals has been a great supporter of me for a few years now. I love Dr. Lesser and Mary, his wife. And so we're going to take a short break. Be right back.
Depression, anxiety, low energy, weakness, these are just some symptoms of low B12 levels. And the absorbable B12 folate supplement that's helping people declare victory over depression symptoms is De Novo Plus B12 by Magna Pharmaceuticals. Patients with symptoms of depression often exhibit low levels of folate and vitamin B12. The human body needs sufficient folate intake to produce the essential neurotransmitters serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters alleviate feelings of sadness, anxiety, and gloom. What makes De Novo Plus B12 so successful? De Novo Plus B12 contains readily absorbable folate and B12. That means it's more successful at correcting the root cause of your deficiency, not just the symptoms. Whether you are suffering with low energy, depression, fatigue, or anxiety, you owe it to yourself to learn more at magnaweb.com. That's magnaweb.com. Please let us know at checkout that you heard about De Novo Plus B12 on The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Marianne Pinkston, The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston, here with the beautiful, not only just beautiful soul too, Stephanie Georges, who has put together the Meraki Dignity Project. We've been talking a lot about it. It's a wonderful thing. I'm so excited about this for you and for everybody on it. And I mentioned before the break that, talk a little bit about bringing health into it and have a comment there. But something I forgot we mentioned beforehand we wanted to talk about was AI fear. Because AI is to us, to me, I consider myself kind of an old fart, but I'm very resistant to change. And this is a scary thing. We've all seen movies where things have gone wrong and whatnot. So can we talk a little bit about the AI fear and how it can help us?
I'd be happy to. I mean, it is something that is appropriate. I mean, I think that there is a lot of change happening rapidly. And I think that is no question affecting how people are thinking about AI and thinking about technology. Our view, my view, at least the way I've sort of been able to navigate AI is just like any other big change in our society, educate yourself, right? Dig in as a woman, as an adult, dig in, understand it, play with it, engage with it. It becomes much clearer and much more accessible if you actually know it. And that is, we were talking earlier about taking that leap. Yeah. Just start with a prompt or just start with, asking a question. It doesn't have to be personal. And really think about it as what it is increasingly being used for, as a way to gain knowledge and personal growth. So I think that there's an opportunity to use AI for knowledge access. Yes. So the only way to sort of understand it is to be in it. And I think for many of us, it may seem intimidating, but taking those first steps and engaging is helps make you informed.
Absolutely. And this is a great place to get started with that, I think, honestly.
Well, one of the things, so what's really, I've been thinking that this is a really golden age for women. Yeah. And I tend to be optimistic, but I think there's some data to prove that. Because of what we talked about earlier, that women have, as a group, growing economic influence because they are more powerful than they have been. They've been in the workforce. They're much more educated than they were. We talked about the wealth transfer in aggregate. They're outliving. They have longer life expectancy. It's not only a benefit to women, but it's a benefit to society if we can help bring that knowledge to women and give access. So what's also been interesting, as I'm sure you appreciate, is that scientific attention is increasing around women. Right. More and more research on women's health. We are being viewed, as not small men. Right. And finally, so the reason I go there, it seems like a digression, but the reason I go there is that means we can tap into knowledge through AI that's very specific to women because the knowledge base is growing. The information is growing. At the same time, there's a lot of misinformation.
Yes. Be careful. Yes.
So I think that's why, and this isn't necessarily just for Meraki. I think when you are engaging with AI, ensure that you are in a place where you are giving yourself the ability to have evidence-based information and don't just trust it. And so that's one of the other aspects and features of our platform is it is evidence-based,
Yes.
women informed. So, because I think in addition to having more and more research and more knowledge about women and giving us access to better information, there's also a lot of misinformation.
Absolutely. And we do have to be cautious about that. And especially in the medical field, the self-research that goes into things and the lack of scientific evidence that follows and ability to apply it. And I preach on that a lot. So I thank you for bringing that up. But I also thank you for being one of those pioneers, because you're right. This is the golden age. We are able to coast on. I went to Antarctica last year and I know it's amazing.
I'm so jealous. That is on my list.
Do it. Everyone should do it. It's amazing. But what I did was I read a couple of books about the pioneers that went before us, Edmondson, Shackelford, people like that, who went before us and endured and mapped it all out. And so we're able to go on a cushy little cruise ship and across the Drake Passage with no problems. And I feel that applies to this channel for women ahead of us because of people like you, people like my mom, who came ahead of us to really forge that road. So thank you for that. It's wonderful. And then to take your experience in it and apply it to a project like this is amazing. You're leaving your mark, and you're leaving your mark on many women. Thank you for that. And the direction I will take into the health side of things, I believe very strongly. I coined it kind of the Superwoman Syndrome, but that's already been coined somewhere. So fine, can't ride that. But I do feel that we have harmed our health for the future by not making the choices to find our peace and our freedom and to affect our world around us in a better way with our talents and our passion, rather than doing the things we have to do and should do and feeling guilty about it when we don't, that transition that into what we want to do and what we love. And then we still affect the people around us, right? It's the same thing. But the health side of it is, I feel, with all those stressors and that guilt and some women have experienced trauma because of it and can't escape it. But the health long-term increased risk of cancer and heart disease and dementia and, things like that. Our longevity is decreasing. And I think a lot of those stressors come from women not setting their boundaries and not doing what they focus on and love on and keeping their peace and informing, and that's why I'm hoping we can now teach our next generation to think differently, feel differently. And so this is a great tool. I really think this falls right into that to improve even our health outcomes, for the long haul. I don't know if you see it that way, but that's kind of how
I absolutely. I mean, going back to, absolutely. I mean, Meraki, I think I started by talking about my mom and that kind of peace in joy of doing, being in a place where you feel like you are doing something with creativity, soul, and love. And
right.
And that may sound woo-woo, but in a lot of ways, kind of having that sort of centering, it's almost like the oxygen mask. You have to put on the oxygen mask before you can help others. I think if women can just reframe a little bit and think about and have access to, these are ways I can get joy and gratification out of things that are connected to what I want to do, and the world can be a better place. It's not mutually exclusive. It doesn't have to be a grind and a stress to do it.
Right.
Sometimes, when you're in the wrong gear, it's, to your point, it's not only mentally, but physically damaging. And I think that we forget that and sort of I like your point, Superwoman. I think there's this point of needing to be a hero, but there's an opportunity that you can do both. You can something that has flow and you love and has joy and brings meaning and purpose, and that will spread to others.
Yes, it does. And give an example here given. So
exactly.
Is there anything that we have left out that you feel important to, the project or your work or any topic we've left out at this point?
Well, this feels like it covered. I couldn't have planned to have all the points that I wanted to share made. I mean, I would just say that regardless of the Meraki platform, I would just encourage women, like I said, to sort of think about what brings them clarity. How do they sort of find themselves a place, whether it's our platform or on their own, to kind of invest in themselves holistically. And with that, like I think you are an example, I hope I am an example that you can find joy and feel like you're giving to society and having purpose and meaning. And
absolutely.
It's a great
Absolutely. It can be done. I know women are very, have a lot of that fear. It's okay to feel that fear. It's normal. We all felt it. You felt it. I felt it. And it's normal, but surpass it and just be brave. Step forward. Others have done it before you. Example here and done it successfully. You can too. Now you've got the support that you need and resources in order to step out and get that done. Just start. That's all you have to do. Once you start, you can't stop that freight train. It's like once you get a little bit of feeling of that freedom and love with it, it won't stop. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful journey. So I thank you so much for sharing your story and your work with us. I am going to make sure that everything is on the website at drpbetterlife.com so that everybody can access it. If you don't mind, please reiterate your website and everything and where people can find you. And
you find us at merakidignity.com, Meraki dignity.com. And definitely check out our Substack. Follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn. We'd love to have you part of our community.
Beautiful. Absolutely. It's wonderful. So please check it out. And with that, I will thank you again for appearing, and for everybody out there, have a great week and please take care of each other.
You've been enjoying The Better Life with Dr. Marianne Pinkston. For more information, go to drpthebetterlife.com. That's drpthebetterlife.com. And listen next week for The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.